teachers of Reddit. How obvious is it when one student has a crush on a classmate? In middle school they just start trying to get on each other's nerves more and are usually overly smiley. The main problem comes when only one of them is smiley. It's 100% super obvious all the time. But I teach emotionally damaged teenagers. Everything with students is obvious. I know who you have a crush on. I know when you and your friend got in a fight and aren't the same today. I know when you are having a bad week. I know when you've lost motivation. I know when you're looking for attention, and I know when you want to be left alone. Some teachers use this information to make informed decisions like sitting you next to your crush, cutting you slack that day, asking if everything is alright, etc. But I've seen some use it to be unfair to students. Depends on the age. But the signs are obvious as heck. Lots of staring. And not so obvious, but very obvious attempts at being near them. Visible disappointment when they aren't put in the same group for group work. Jealousy in all forms. I've seen a kid hate a classmate for weeks because that classmate sat next to the kid's crush for morning meeting. Super obvious. When a girl says "stoo-hoopa" while laughing at a guy who is teasing her. Or a guy goes out of his way to make fun of her, steal something from her, so she'll have to pursue him to get it back. It makes me 100% certain. Shout out to my high school econ teacher for noticing that me and a girl were into each other, constantly putting us in the same group, straight up asking the girl if she had a boyfriend while I was in the room. Mrs. Anderson is the best wingman of all time. There's a boy in my class whose voice hasn't changed yet, but every time he is talking to another girl from a different class he is noticeably lowering his voice to sound deeper. Obvious signs are obvious. I once had a teacher tell me that my crush and I worked together well, and used him and I as an example for something. We ended up together, and she said, "Oh, I so predicted it." Seeing the reaction on her face was priceless, and I'll never forget it. So, apparently we were very obvious. They start sitting next to each other. Then why does she keep moving away? Not a teacher, but I had an amazing teacher. She knew I had a crush on this girl, and she might have known she had a crush on me. All high school assigned seating we were put next to each other. All projects we did together. She put us together for everything. I'm marrying that girl in 4.5 weeks. Thanks, Mrs. Perez. What's even more obvious is when one has a crush and the other isn't interested. I'm speaking strictly from the demographic from my own school I taught at. So I hope it's clear I'm not generalizing all teenagers here. But I've noticed, when a girl is crushing, and the guy isn't, he is more likely, but not always, to be more forward about telling her so. To the point in 1 or 2 cases of sometimes being openly cruel to her. The girls in the reverse situation act annoyed and will sometimes make their disinterest clear. But more often than not they grin and bear it and try to pretend the crush doesn't exist. That's all I've got. I was there 4 months. Former middle school teacher here. I actually told kids one year that if they wanted me to change their seating chart they could email me. This was to avoid potential conflicts or bullying. Instead, a girl asked me to put her next to the boy she liked. I did. I wanted to reward her for asking for what she wanted. I think my exact words were, "Get it, girl." Unfortunately for her, he wasn't interested. I remember one time during an 8th grade field day hearing a bit of an altercation between a few kids. When I went over there I saw that this one very nerdy kid was chasing another boy around the football field, while a few other boys laughed and a girl was telling them to stop. Turns out what happened was that one of those boys was teasing the girl like that kind of stupid teasing 8th grade boys do to girls they like, and that the nerdy kid who also seemed to have a crush on this girl stood up to the boy to defend her honor and wanted to fight him. So instead of fighting, the boy ran in circles while the nerdy kid chased him, furious and red in the face. It was very cringy. I got the vibe that the girl didn't mind the teasing from that boy and that the nerdy kid's crush was probably not reciprocated. I broke up the fight. Partly because I wanted to save the nerdy kid from his 8th grade self. I think most of us have been in a situation as a teenager where we try to impress someone who doesn't feel the same way. I didn't want him to look back years later and be even more embarrassed by it had it gone on longer. They started hanging around each other a lot, always hugging, making lots of context for physical contact. Then they started holding hands, became very close to the point that you'd never see one without the other until they finally started dating. They were two of the most troublesome children, and to this day everyone is afraid of this relationship. Sadly, sometimes they get aggressive to get their crush's attention. I tried to ask this question, but instead of classmate, I wrote teacher. I was told the Wi-Fi was spotty in jail, which explains my lack of responses. Used to teach 6th and 8th grade science at an inner city school. I told all of my students their best chance at dating their crush was to be respectful. The 8th graders ignored me and proceeded to make fun of their crushes. The 6th graders though, they bought it. 11-year-olds were holding the door open and pulling chairs out for their crushes. Being supportive and kind to one another. Cutest shit ever. In the words of my teacher, who I recently saw during break in college now, when she decided to sit in your lap every day and started playing house with you instead of working, I kind of got the hint. How in God's name did you miss it? Apparently, the fact that this girl was so obvious, while I didn't see it, triggered her. She even ranted about it for a couple of minutes in one of her other classes before she realized that that was inappropriate. In my defense, the girl was actively trying to send mixed signals. Not a teacher, but my Spanish teacher somehow noticed my crush. I didn't have Spanish class with my crush. Also, my history teacher always placed me by my crush, not creepy, and I started to guess that one teacher noticed. They spread it to other teachers. A few years after I graduated HS, I ran into my geometry teacher. She vividly remembered me because I got a low C, but selected to retake her class because I really didn't learn geometry. Not her fault. Midway through the semester she actually saw the look on my face when I got it. We did a quick catch up, and she asked me if Michelle and I ever got together. I looked at her puzzled and said no. Why would you think we would? She laughed at me and explained that it was brutally obvious to her, day one, that she liked me. Proceed to fill me in on everything she did that indicated she was into me. That whooshed right over my head as a stupid 10th grader. She said she saw her the first day of class walk in, stop for a second, and walk directly over to the desk next to mine and sit down. At that point you've chosen your desk for the semester. This class was the only time I would see her at school. Maybe in the halls every now and then. She would always ask me how I or the team did soccer, swimming, track, lacrosse, baseball, and be sure to congratulate me when my name got announced for winning scoring. Even mentioned she went to the game and saw me play. She gave me a nickname that she used all the time. She saw when I would struggle and try to help me. My teacher loved this. She thought it was so cute. Made sure to walk out of the classroom next to me every time. She'd compliment me sometimes on clothes. To be fair, it was common knowledge she had a boyfriend at another school, so I didn't even think that this was anything more than her being friendly. I was also a dweeb that happened to be very athletically inclined. The folks I hung out with were not the popular crowd. Where she was, I didn't even hang out with my teammates, the jocks, but easily fit in with them and could approach the group. In my mind there were not enough mathematicians on earth to calculate how far out of her league I was. When they're in kindergarten they go from ignoring the other person to holding hands at recess and getting mad when they don't get out in the same play center together. Up until high school, and even then sometimes, it takes the form of harassing or picking on the person they are attracted to. It's more socially acceptable at that stage to mess with them than just express attraction. It's funny to watch, to be honest. They tell me in hopes to derail the class, but my love for molecules is greater than my love for teenage gossip. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.